Welcome, everyone, to this week's Really Big Fan Podcast. I'm your host, ChZuck, joined as always by my co-host, ACRONYM.
Hi.
And this is kind of how we're ending our, or at least my big 4th of July weekend. Like I got 2 days off, and then like Wednesday is kind of my day off, so that's when we do the podcast. And so like I haven't really been to work in like a week.
Yeah.
But
that had to feel nice or confusing.
it was confusing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely confusing. I actually picked up
What do I do?
picked up extra days at the comic store just because I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. I have no idea.
Meanwhile, here's me just like crammed in my computer
Right.
the entire time, like nothing has changed. I'm like, it's just another day.
I know. Yeah, that's the funny thing too. Is it's the 4th of July, so everyone's doing the fireworks thing, and like we don't care. We don't
No.
have the money to spend on fireworks, and we really aren't patriotic in this household.
Yeah, it's hard to be patriotic when everybody wants to take my rights away. So
Right.
I'm like, I'm good.
just-
I'm set.
We just sit in here. I played video games.
Yep.
As I always do. So all the explosions I had were in Fortnite. But so yeah, that was what we did with our weekend. We've got all 5 or all 10 fingers, all 10 all 10 toes, nothing
Speak
up
for
blown up.
yourself.
What? Okay.
And now headlines.
It's the first headline. You're missing toes. I can see your hands.
I know. You don't know how many feet I have either. Oh.
Now it's just getting weird. You've over caffeinated this morning instead of being under caffeinated when we started. You started off hot.
Well, you were like looking at me earlier and going like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm saving it all for the show. I gotta."
See, I need to learn that you're like when you're low key, it's because you're gonna bust right out as soon as the mics and cameras are on.
Speaking of people busting out, what is your first?
My first headline is about a roller coaster in North Carolina that it's called the Nightmare Giga Coaster. Was shut down after somebody was recording their daughter on the roller coaster and realized that one of the poles that was holding up one of the spin-arounds had a huge crack in it and moved every time the car came over to it.
And how do they not look at that stuff every time they open the park? Like, how do you not have safety checks?
Oh, I'm sure they do. But I'm sure it's also a matter of how much money would we lose by shutting this down? Let's not shut it down until we have to.
I mean, I guess, but like if you have like a death, you're gonna have a major lawsuit, and that's gonna cost way more. It's like when I drive my car and I drive it for too long when something's wrong with it, and then eventually it just breaks down, and it's like
It's true.
It would have been cheaper if you would have fixed it down the line, but instead now you have this huge repair to do.
Right.
And in their case, it would be like roller coaster breaks, people die. Not malpractice. What is the word for that? Is that considered manslaughter? Something like that. I don't know. But you definitely would have a lawsuit on your hands.
Yeah, no, that would. It's a terrifying video.
All I could think was Final Destination.
Yes, I don't like roller coasters, anyways.
Yep.
I don't. My stomach's already touchy enough. I don't need something jerking me around and making me feel gross.
Yeah, there's the Wicked Twister in Cedar Point. Goes up and curls and down and up and curls and goes back and forth like that. And like that's what triggered in my mind when I saw that, because I just remember watching that going like, that could just snap and fall right in the lake at any given time.
Right.
And I don't know if that just makes me like messed up in the head or what, but I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, no, don't want to be on that.
Right. When you could start, I think that's a symptom of getting older too, is that when you look at something and you can start to see the cracks in it, you can start to see like, well, that's dangerous. It's like,
yeah,
you've got your own mortality in your head that you didn't have when you were a teenager.
Well, and I've never considered it to be a mortality thing necessarily, because I haven't had the best self-preservation throughout my life with all my urban exploring stuff.
Sure.
Which you think like a roller coaster versus climbing a water tower in a desert, like the roller coaster would sound safer, but
at least there's a lot of people around with the roller coaster.
I mean, yeah, in theory, yeah, but I remember the first time I ever went on the Millennium Force, and Emily goes, "Don't look to your left." And I'm like, "Okay, you're saying that, and now I'm gonna look to my left."
Immediately.
All it is water.
Yeah.
All around that spot is just water, and I'm like, "We're gonna die. We're gonna die. We're gonna die." And she's like, "We're not gonna die." And I'm like, "We're gonna die." We got off of there, and I felt like my brain had like jolted and stuck to the top of
your skull.
So ever since then, I don't think I've been on a roller coaster since.
That's the joy of the roller coaster, though, isn't it? Is the like getting in a thing, and then at some point getting the expectation of I might die, and then you don't die, and you're like, yes,
Well, yeah,
I win.
It's an adrenaline thing. I think I just like it, at least in the urban exploring side of things. I think I like having the control of choosing at what point do I go,
Yeah.
versus just like being strapped into something and plummeting to my potential death.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah, the North Carolina Department of Labor has shut it down, and they're going to be investigating it. But it's like I said, it's an absolutely terrifying video to watch the roller coaster come around that thing and the power just go whoop.
Well, less terrifying video, but still has a hint of death nonetheless. Adele threatened to kill everyone at a concert the other day.
No.
She did, but it was in jest.
Well, right, exactly.
So there's been, if you've been looking at any music media lately, you've been seeing that people keep throwing things on stage or handing things to the performers. Have you seen this?
I've seen people handing things stuff. People have been throwing stuff on stage since I was going to concerts as a teenager.
It's gotten worse since the cell phone thing happened because there's been a couple people that have thrown their literal cell phone thinking that they're going to get a TikTok video.
I don't remember who you showed me that threw their cell phone on there, and like that's gone.
Yeah.
You're never getting that back. How much are cell phones?
I know it's not. Haley Williams wasn't the first person that did it, but somebody did throw a phone and she took like video and then tossed it back into the crowd or whatever. I know that there's been rappers that have done it. I know that there was one rapper, I forget who it was, but he picked up the phone and literally threw it as hard as he could back into the crowd without doing anything.
Yes, once again,
you're never seeing that phone again, right? So then it started to get worse. Somebody threw something at BB Rexa and gave her a black eye.
Okay.
Like mid-performance. Somebody threw something at Kelsey Ballerini, who's a country singer. So it's like it's going across genre at this point, right? Hit her in the face. I think there was somebody else that got hit in the face as well. Somebody handed Pink her mother's ashes.
What?
Yes. And then the following concert, or the concert a couple days later, they handed her a giant wheel of brie. Things are just getting weird.
I saw the wheel of brie. That's kind of funny.
So she was just going like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So enter Adele. She's doing her concert. At one point, she walks out with a giant T-shirt gun. And she goes, you've been hearing all how everybody's been throwing things at different performers? Whatever happened to concert etiquette? I swear if one of you try me, I will fucking kill all of you. And straight up, like, has this gun in her hand and then shoots a T-shirt into the crowd.
Well, it's a T-shirt gun.
Yes,
so.
but it was still very funny because she was just like, she's got her little cute British accent too. She's like, I'll fucking kill all of you. And then she's just laughing her ass off afterwards. So that is violent but funny.
I know I told you this story before, but I was at Nirvana's last concert here in Michigan, which is at the Michigan State Fairgrounds.
Yep.
We didn't get an encore because people were throwing shirts and shoes and whatnot on stage the whole time, and somebody threw a shoe and it hit the mic stand and knocked the mic into Kurt's teeth during Scentless Apprentice. And he
of course, yeah. He was probably just done.
He just threw his guitar on the ground and walked off, and the band finished Scentless Apprentice. It was like during the second verse.
Oh, wow.
The band finished playing Scentless Apprentice, Dave and Pat and Chris, and then walked off to find out what was going on, and then the lights came up and we didn't get an encore.
Well, yeah, that's what you deserve. I feel like,
agree.
Honestly, I feel like if you get hit in the face as an artist, you have your full rights to walk off.
Yeah.
I get that, there's going to be people that are going to be like, well, I didn't get my full show, and it's like, well, behave.
Right.
And hold your concert goers accountable. It's like when people fall, you're supposed to help them get back up, not trample them, right? So, I don't know what it is because I think I even said after the pandemic when I first started going back to shows, I'm like, where did the concert etiquette go? Because people were just acting a fool.
Right.
And I can't tell you, like twice during my show, Paramore had to stop for one reason or another. Either
Yeah.
people were getting hurt or they were passing out. I don't know which. But there have been multiple times where she's had to stop the show and she puts on her mom voice.
Yep.
Even though she's not a mom. And she's
Right.
like, excuse me, what is going on here? Are we done?
Right.
Do we need to start this song over? What is happening here?
And
she's ejected people before.
you talked last week about that Queens of the Stone Age video with Josh. I think he might be the best at like controlling a crowd like that.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's like if you have this rocker that is like, he's all about danger, but he's putting it in a sense of like, no, I run this shit.
Right.
I am in control. You don't go until I fucking say go.
Dave Grohl.
People are going to laugh about it and they're going to be like, oh yeah, Josh is cool. I'm going to do it. But like, try and have a female do that. Oh, she's such a bitch.
Right.
You
I was
know?
going to say, Dave Grohl seems really good at keeping control of a crowd, too. I remember
Him going,
videos of
hey. You don't fight at my shows.
Right,
You don't
exactly.
fight at my shows. You get the fuck out of here if you want to fight at my shows.
Right.
And then, like, being scolded by Dave Grohl or Haley Williams would just kill me inside.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, I would just feel mortified. I don't know why anybody would even bother trying at that point. Like, no, you should just, never go out again.
Well, the next bit of news I've got for you is about a movie that Disney put on Disney Plus 7 weeks ago that they have taken off the servers already. The movie was called Crater. It starred Grace McKenna, who I loved in Ghostbusters.
McKenna Grace.
Or McKenna Grace
Yep.
and Kid Cudi.
Mm-hmm. Cuddy.
And
I'm helping you.
do you want to read this?
Yes. I'm helping you.
But yeah, I guess the practice has been that if you delete things off the server, you don't have to claim it on your taxes. Which is why some of this stuff like Willow is gone from the server. And
Oh my god, that makes it so much more annoying.
but honestly, like I can kind of see like this was always going to be a problem with the streaming service.
Yeah.
Like they're
This
gonna
is why you have hard copy games.
they're gonna hit a capacity on the server and then have to make the decision of like, do we spend more money for another server or do we save money by taking stuff that has the lowest rate of watching off the server to make room.
They're like multi-billion-dollar companies. You can afford to get another server.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn into that lady from that one TV show that I don't watch and go, what could it cost? $600? But like seriously, like you are a multi-billion-dollar company, figure it out. Meanwhile, you have somebody like Netflix pulling Titanic back onto Netflix at the same time.
Yeah.
So like figure your shit out, streaming services.
No, I'm not saying it's good practice, but I feel it's the kind of practice that I remember when Steam started for the PC. I remember thinking like, yeah, but if I buy my games on Steam and Steam goes away, then I just don't have them.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And like now it seems foolish. Like Steam is never going away.
Yeah, no. I mean, like even if it does, they'll phase out games, but it's kind of like when you guys have like what was it, the Xbox 360 servers or something when they finally decided to shut those down.
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah, where like if you wanted to play online and they had to have servers up for that and they shut those down.
Yep, stuff like that. But I can understand both sides of like I get wanting to have hard copies, but at the same time it's like it's turned into this thing of like, well, what is worth having a hard copy?
Well,
It's
and
the
it's
same thing with music, with streaming services and vinyls. Like,
yeah,
you've downsized your CD collection,
for sure.
and like,
But there's still
half of
stuff in there that is just not on streaming.
exactly, and that's where it's like you keep those, and then you keep the ones that you really love. Like you've got like these Smashing Pumpkins B-sides and stuff like that you hold on to. But when it comes down to like, I feel like if it's so niche for music, you don't have those things on streaming services, and those are the things that you got like dollar bin at record time.
Yeah.
But then you have that with movies as well, but it's not to the same degree because I don't feel like every movie is on streaming services. With music, it's like almost everything is on a streaming service, with the exception of some like random local stuff.
That's why you've seen me pick up like DVDs of stuff that never even made it to Blu-ray.
Exactly.
And that's the problem now is that you get a movie like this that was on Disney Plus, there's not a hard copy.
Yeah, you don't have a hard copy of that.
You just can't see it unless you go to pirate servers.
Well, that's the thing. It's that like if you're gonna pull it off the server, then you need to have a mandate in place that if you're pulling it out of a server, you need to issue a certain amount of physical copies.
Right.
That is where I feel, and it's like it's gotten to a slight nervousness with me too, because we don't actually like not to call us out, but we don't pay for our Netflix. We share with one of our friends, and that's gonna go away.
Yep.
I am seriously considering getting all of Stranger Things in hard copy.
Just so you can watch it whenever you want.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not going to have access to Netflix for a bit of time or whatever, because honestly, I just can't afford to throw another subscription on top of everything else.
Right.
But, like, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, like, that's the only thing I've watched for the last 6 months on Netflix that I've actively chosen to watch.
Uh-huh.
You have put things on that I have sat and watched, which is different.
Right.
But, like, what do I watch when I watch Netflix? Stranger Things. So it's like, for me, I would like to have that, even though I can't just pull it up on my iPad or something like that, just so in the event that they decide, okay, well, we don't care anymore, I have it.
I was going to say, I'm imagining you like with a DVD player on your desk and a small television just so you can watch.
Well, I certainly can't get a PS5 and do it. Because I can't listen to music on it either.
It's so funny to me. You sent me that text yesterday. It was like, you can't play CDs on a PS5? I'm like, I got news for you. You can't play CDs on a PS4.
It seems like such a no-brainer.
It absolutely does.
It has a CD drive. Make it so it can listen to CDs. I had no clue that the PS4 couldn't do it.
Yep.
I know the PS2 can.
The PS3 was the last PlayStation system that could do it. And the PlayStation 3, you could rip stuff off the CDs and keep in the hard drive.
Yeah.
Because one of the wrestling games I had, you could use one of those tracks for your entrance theme.
See, that's
which was
awesome.
super cool.
But, the more that technology gets advanced, the more it takes away.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that more and more with certain things, and I'm just like, don't like technology the way I used to. I used to love all of this, and now it's become a nuisance.
It's funny that it's now becoming a problem to you being an iPhone user. Like, they're notorious for taking things away, like your headphone jack.
Oh, I hate that. Trust me. But, like, if I have Bluetooth headphones, I don't care. It's the minute that I want to actually use analog headphones, like those ones that I used to have that were the Diva headphones.
Yeah.
Those were the only wired headphones I had. But this laptop has a headphone hole.
Interesting.
It's so bizarre. I don't get it anymore. But yeah, there are a lot of things in technology that are annoying to me, and Disney Plus is really getting on my shit list. So
welcome to being old.
We'll go full circle. Oh my goodness.
Do you have anything else?
I have one more. It's about my band Wet Leg.
Yeah.
Let me pull this up real quick because I don't want to get the quote wrong because it's so silly. So the ex-boyfriend of Rian Teasdale, which is the lead singer of Wet Leg,
Okay.
her ex-boyfriend talked to the Times in the UK to complain that he should be compensated for his contributions, claiming to help write 2 of their hit songs, as well as help with the band name. It's a lot of he said, she said, like, well, this is how they say it happened, but this is how I say it happened, situations or whatever.
Right.
In true X fashion, he also laid claim to the fact that the song Wet Dream is about him. And the song is a breakup song. The song is literally like, oh, you think you're good enough to whack off to me? Weird flex. I want to point out the song is about you, but go off, I guess.
He's willing to take the hit if it means a paycheck.
Apparently. And he gripes that he can't go anywhere without hearing about his successful former partner. So the nail in the coffin that really seals the tone of this whole article, he's talking about the album that's like the self-titled Wet Leg. It says, why does it have to be the #1 album? Could it not just be #4 or something?
How dare people like this album?
You said this in print, sir. I didn't even, like, when I wrote this down, because I posted my pictures of Wet Leg this morning and wrote this down, I didn't even bother to say his name, because I'm just, like, so perturbed by the whole thing. I'm just, like, I get the point of wanting to be paid for your contributions. That I completely understand. But, like, going, well, this song's about me, and she's literally talking about how you're not good enough to jerk off to her.
She's talking about how much you suck.
I can't compute that. Okay. So there's my news.
That puts Dave Coulier in a much better light.
You know,
he didn't try and get Alanis Morissette to give him a paycheck.
Yeah, it's definitely true. He didn't even have like full confirmation that it's him. He's like, well, she did show up to one of my dinners one night.
Right.
Upset. Like, that was basically it. Like, he was just like, I think it's about me, but I don't really know. Cut it out!
Well, the last one I've got for you, Magic the Gathering just put out a set that is based on Lord of the Rings, which is kind of cool. I think it's it's not the very first time that they've licensed something and put it in Magic the Gathering, but it's the first time they've done like a full set of cards that you buy booster packs of that is set in Lord of the Rings. But part of that set is there is one version, there is one printing of the One Ring in all of the cards that have been printed. There's not like
so it's not like one per pack. It's
no,
one
it's not like you can get the One Ring and then I can get the One Ring and we can play them again. No, there is one in the whole world, and somebody pulled it over the weekend.
That person's going to put it on eBay for $1 million.
Well, it's he pulled it and immediately sent it to have it graded. It came back at a 9, which I mean, why isn't it a 10? There's only like it's never been played. I just opened it, but it's the same thing with comics.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is worth billions and billions of dollars, and the person who pulled it does not want to be identified. But it has been certified. It has been put online. You know, like the picture of like, yes, I have it. It is here, right here.
I would be selling that bitch immediately. I don't care how exciting that is about a game.
Yeah.
Being that person and be like, give me the money. Who wants it? Highest bidder. Elon Musk, come buy this.
I wish I had the kind of money that I could just play it.
Yeah.
Just put it in a deck with no sleeves and just play it to watch people lose their minds. What are you doing?
Considering I even had that reaction when I was like, wait, you take your Transformers out of the boxes and then throw the box away? What is wrong with that? That's what? And
Well,
you're like, well, yeah, I put them on display. They're mine. I'm like, but if you wanted to sell those, now you don't have the box. And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, ah.
it's funny how the tables are turned in our relationship. Like I'm the Gwen taking the figure out of the package, and you're the Miles going.
Yep. It stressed me out the first time I realized you were doing it, and then I went like, okay, well, it's his stuff, so it's on him.
So we were hanging out with some friends at a birthday party over the weekend, and they were talking about this, and there are some people who are actively playing Magic, whereas I haven't played Magic in over a decade. And I was asking them, like, do you like that Magic, like now I feel this kind of can open the door that Magic can just do sets of whatever they can get the license to. They could have Magic the Gathering Star Wars, they could have Magic the Gathering Marvel, Disney, you know, like whatever they can get the license to. And already, like I said, they've done smaller sets where like, because Hasbro owns Magic the Gathering, where like they had 6 Transformers cards that you could play, like Optimus Prime and Starscream and that kind of thing. And I was like, I asked them, do you like that or do you dislike that? Because now it's kind of diluting the brand. They actually were all very positive about the idea of like, I already know the rules to Magic. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Let me turn it into Fortnite. Let me pit Mario against Captain America. Let's go.
I could see that. Like my gut reaction, not having any stake in this, no skin in this game,
Right.
Because I can't retain rules for card games at all.
I know it breaks my heart. I love
it's
card games.
the
and,
worst.
like, you're just like,
I can't even play Munchkin.
your eyes cross when I pull out a card game.
Oh, it's so bad. Drop Mix is probably like that and Uno are like the only games I can play. But to me, I feel like if it's Magic, it should pertain to stuff like Willow, The Witcher, like medieval
Harry Potter, stuff like that.
Harry Potter is even too recent, I feel like.
Yeah.
It should be like medieval. Like
sword and sorcery stuff.
Yeah, like even like you had that Dungeons and Dragons movie that just came out.
Oh, for sure.
So like that probably would never get licensed because they would want to do a Dungeons
Hasbro
and Dragons.
Hasbro owns both.
Oh, so then you could do a crossover event like that.
Yeah,
I feel like that makes sense.
I think they have put D&D creatures in Magic in the last like, decade or so.
Or you know, you could even get weird with it, I guess, and like you know have like a weird band like Gwar or something.
Gwar Magic cards?
I don't know,
That's
like
not a bad
you know, or that
whatsoever.
what is that? Is it Sleep Token, the one with the masks? Like you have somebody or no, there's like
remember.
There's one that starts with an H too. I forget what the band name is, but they like wear like weird cloaked things to perform or whatever. And I feel like as long as it skirts that medieval vein, you could do that. But like it seems weird to me to have like what do you call it? Like a Star Wars
Blade
or
Runner
something, or like Stranger Things.
Magic cards, right?
That would be a little weird to me. But like I said, I don't play the game, so
yeah, we're not paying customers, so our opinions don't really matter.
Exactly. That's my thought process on it, because it feels like it's a medieval game. It should stay within medieval times, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It was funny because after talking to them, somebody had pulled out like their box of Magic cards for like drafting or something like that, and they were like, "Hey, you want to get into this?" Like, no, the minute I touch that, the drugs seep into your hands and then into your fingers and get in your blood. Next thing you know, you're buying cards.
And not showering.
Wow. Terrible stereotype. Awful stereotype. Well,
Sorry.
I mentioned that it breaks my heart that you don't like card games because I do like card games. There's another thing that breaks my heart that I like that you don't like, and that's going to be our topic.
It's not that I don't like the X-Men, but we're going to talk about X-Men. I'll explain what my feelings are.
Sure.
Next. Welcome back to the Really Big Fan Pod, and we are going to talk to Chuck over here.
Who? Me?
You.
Oh.
We're going to talk to you about why X-Men movies are not in order or in canon or anything. Because I promised I would explain my gripe. I don't understand it, and there's so much source material, and I don't know what's right and what's been retconned.
Right.
But I do talk to Chuck about X-Men when I see specific panels.
Yeah, when you're online.
I'm in an X-Men group.
Yeah, you're in an X-Men group to see the memes so you
Yes.
can understand what the joke is and who the characters are.
Exactly. And like how ridiculous Emma Frost can be and
Yes.
how gay everyone is. And I actually straight up ask you if you were queer because of the X-Men.
Right, and I don't think so, but it definitely introduced me to some fetishes that I was not aware of.
So I want to start with, what was the quote from the guy that was talking about if they were all together or they don't have chemistry?
Okay, so this was taken from the Cerebro podcast, and it's concerning the new era of X-Men, the Krakoan era, where they're all on this island and feel a little bit like a cult. And he was talking about one of the his name's Jonathan Hickman. He wrote some of the books, the original books for the first couple of years of the Krakoan stuff. And he was saying that one of the traps that a new writer will fall into is they'll see the fans complaining about, oh, I can't believe this character and this character aren't together, or there's lots of love triangles in X-Men or characters that have been together at different points that they're like, oh, those two deserve to be together, and people will cater to that to try and win over the fans. And he was like, okay, look, we're not doing this anymore. Like, they're all on an island. Either we're going to make a hard list of everybody who's together. We're not going to have this Scott, Jean, Emma thing going on anymore. Or everybody is fucking everybody. And Marvel said, okay, the second one. Anybody can drop in and out of any relationship at any time, and there's no you don't have to worry about the fans really pushing for Rogue and Gambit to be together, kind of thing. So yeah, that was the Cerebro podcast, one of the most recent ones they did about Apocalypse, and they talked to Jonathan Hickman about, which is funny how I get a lot of my X-Men content. Like, I still read the books a lot, but a lot of my X-Men love these days comes from listening to a handful of podcasts about X-Men.
No, I get that. So we'll backtrack now that we covered that, because I really wanted you to get that part of, like,
it's really
fucking or not.
It was really funny story.
So what was the first X-Men book? Do you remember?
Well, that's why I wanted to talk about this, is because the very first X-Men comic book was released 60 years ago this past weekend.
Oh.
And I thought this would be a good time
Right.
to delve into why I love X-Men as like probably one of my 5 franchises.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, like, what was the first one you had, though, is what I mean.
So when we talked about Transformers in the first episode, I talked about how primarily my love of Transformers came from the Marvel comics that were coming out. And at the time, I was collecting those, and I was collecting the Archie version of Ninja Turtles comics. And that was pretty much all comics were to me. I realized I knew Spider-Man and Batman existed. I'd seen Wolverine and stuff, but I didn't have any interest in that stuff. I liked what I liked. And around 1991, I think I'm in starting high school, and I'm kind of like I'm growing out of Ninja Turtles. Like the figures are kind of getting real silly. They're like 4th or 5th series in, and they're getting real silly. And like the second movie is definitely more kid friendly than the first movie, the first live action movie. So I'm like, I think I'm growing out of Ninja Turtles.
Which, pause, the first live action movie is back on streaming services.
I saw that.
So we'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
Back in.
And I had a friend, his name was Mark, that had moved to Coldwater, and my parents would let him come and stay for a week, and we would hang out, and he'd sleep over for a week, and then his dad would come pick him up, and I would go stay there for a week in Coldwater, and he would pick me up. And he was from the elementary school. He was buying X-Men comics, and he was buying Spider-Man, and he was super into superheroes. Well, that year, Marvel came out with a set of trading cards called Marvel Universe Series 1, and he gave me a bunch of his doubles, which had a bunch of superheroes in it. And the idea that I had trading cards like baseball cards that had stats on them and told me about guys, it was such the perfect in for superheroes. And I got really hard into that. And then during that summer, I went and hung out with him in Coldwater, and he wanted to go to the comic store because it was, you go every week when the comics come out. So his mom took us to the comic store, and I'm walking around and I'm looking at stuff, and I'm like, okay, I want to get into it. Like, this all looks really cool. I like the cards and stuff. I like these characters. Where do I start? And that was the summer that Infinity Gauntlet came out. So I got Infinity Gauntlet #1. And he didn't get me into X-Men immediately because they were in the middle of a big story, but they were going to start a new title just called X-Men instead of Uncanny X-Men. And one of the best artists in the world, Jim Lee, was going to be drawing that book. And he's like, when that book comes out in September, buy that. That's your start for X-Men. And I was like, okay, cool. But I bought X-Force #1, which was a Rob Liefeld book.
Oh, no. You got into the no feet drawing.
I got into the no feet, yeah. But it's funny to think about that time and look at, like, Rob Liefeld has drawn X-Force / New Mutants. Todd McFarlane has drawn Spider-Man. Eric Larson has drawn Amazing Spider-Man. Like, all these guys go on to form Image Comics and are some of the most influential artists of probably the last couple of decades.
You guys can't see this, but this is Jim Lee up here, right?
Yes.
Scott Williams.
That's from the X-Men #1.
Oh,
that was the fold out for the cover. That because the X-Men #1 came with 5 covers, and then they came out weekly, and then on the 6th week you got the big fold out that was all 5 covers together.
Gotcha.
And they put that cool poster with all the characters on it on the back.
We're gonna need to find another one of those. I feel like that one should be like pressed in a frame or something. 'Cause
yeah,
it's just so ripped up now.
Right, but I've had it hanging up this whole time in different points.
Yep.
In different places, whether it was in my room or the basement or now in our studio here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was how I dropped into X-Men. And fast forward a couple of years, I've been collecting X-Men comics. I've gotten into, like, X-Factor and X-Force and the whole line of comics. And my buddy King Mob, who streams here on Twitch, I'll go over his house and we'll play Super Nintendo games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. Well, he's got a bunch of the stuff that came out before I started collecting. The stuff that Chris Claremont had been writing for like 14 to 16 years before I'd started collecting. And I'm reading through that. And he doesn't have issues in order. It's just like issue 283, issue 241, issue 279. So I'm just flipping through because I recognize there's Storm and Wolverine and that's Cyclops, but like I don't know some of these characters and I don't know who Longshot is or Dazzler. And eventually it led to this thing where I would go to comic shows and go surfing through dollar bins and come home with like $20 of X-Men comics that were all out of order.
Yeah.
And eventually I built my collection over a couple of years picking up X-Men books out of dollar bins, which is really hard to do now.
Yeah.
The books that I picked out of dollar bins now, good luck finding a copy that's only $1.
Right. Yeah. No, every time that we go to any con, any comic show, anything, we're always, I say we, but you are looking through the dollar bins and I'm awkwardly standing next to you like, dee, 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 dee.
I know, and I always feel so bad because I'm like,
no, it's okay.
Like, tell me when you want me to stop and we can go.
This is like me going to the bookstore, which is like, I don't go to the bookstore often because that's what happens is that I will be there for hours.
Yeah.
So don't take me to a bookstore. But, when it comes down to it, it's like, if you could find like a good buy, like I get that. Like I've gotten into this habit recently where we keep going over to Disc Replay.
Yeah.
And like every week I'm like, you want to go to Disc Replay? I'm going to go get coffee. You want to go to Disc Replay?
Yep.
Because I'm just like stalking like things that they don't know they didn't price properly.
Right.
And like going,
you're waiting for it to hit a specific price so you could be like, mine.
Yep, that's worth grabbing. Okay, got it.
Yep.
So I understand the premise of it with the comic side of it. So as far as that's concerned, I'm gonna jump forward a little bit. So then you have this boom of the movies comes out in the 2000s.
Yep.
And you have, obviously Hugh Jackman is like the iconic Wolverine.
Yeah. I don't think they've cast a single person as Wolverine since they cast him. They haven't even tried.
Marsden was the perfect Cyclops.
I have to agree.
Yeah, I feel like he's a great Cyclops.
The kid they got for the First Class series of movies, he's okay.
He's all right, yeah.
But James Marsden was Cyclops.
Yeah. I personally
that original cast is really solid.
It's really solid, yeah. And that's the stuff that I randomly would see on TV, but once again didn't know how it all worked and didn't ever see it in order. And then when they dropped the First Class stuff, I'm like, well, now I'm just screwed. I don't understand anything.
Think of it as the difference between the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans and the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. So then you have these different things, but then there's certain characters then jumped into that one later on and things like that. And
the Days of Future Past movie was the one where you're like, I'm out. I have no idea what's happening.
I don't know what's going on. I'm so confused.
And that's a big part of it. There's been multiple stories with time travel in it and characters meeting future and past versions of themselves and stuff. So it's definitely a love letter to that kind of.
And it's not to say that Avengers and all of that isn't that. It's just I was there at the beginning.
Yep.
I was there when it was brought about, right. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I can follow all of this. But then when I start looking at the X-Men stuff, I'm like, I really don't know what's going. I would have to be isolated for a week and watch all of it, and then try to understand what isn't canon anymore.
Right.
Because then there's things that have changed, and so that's always my go-to gripe about it. It's I don't understand. So how does out of all of that, how is navigating the canon, not canon situation for you?
That's the thing that I've thought about the last couple of years, and that's why I'll go through dollar boxes now, and I'll pull books that came out when I was actively collecting that I didn't get.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to recapture that feeling I had when I was younger, where I could buy 20 X-Men books from different eras and not have complete stories, and just be able to go, okay, I guess this happened, because that's what they say happened last issue.
Yeah.
I guess, okay, here we go. But as far as navigating the canon, it can be very difficult, I'm sure you've run into with Star Wars or even possibly with Harry Potter, where when something gets retconned, you take it personally because you really liked that story or you really like that version of the story, and you don't like the new version because you thought the other version was perfect. And that goes back to what Jonathan Hickman was saying, is about some people are like, well, Wolverine and Jean should be together, and other people like Wolverine and Scott should be together. They've been the couple forever kind of thing. And how do you navigate that minefield of fandom kind of thing? And it is you know what if we put a door in Jean's room between her and Wolverine's room and her and Scott's room? What if we get rid of the whole love triangle, just make them a throuple?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I'm definitely not objecting to that.
Right.
It's more of so when you said Star Wars or Harry Potter, I've never seen anything get retconned in Harry Potter.
Fair. Yeah, I don't think there's been a lot of...
It's been more of just stupid J.K. Rowling saying later, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay, and I'm like, since when?
Well, I didn't see any of the Fantastic Secrets, whatever.
Oh yeah, I don't know if any, because I haven't dove into that. I stopped paying.
So I didn't know if they changed anything in those.
That I don't know, but what did ping into my brain was going from Rian Johnson to J.J. Abrams.
Oh, or even looking at the prequels.
Yeah.
Stuff happening in the prequels that kind of contradicts what you heard in the original 3 movies, and being I guess this is what we're doing.
And it's I don't know as much about the prequels because I violently protested them for so long.
For a long time.
I don't really I finally watched them again during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I do know that there's something to do with midichlorians being so important, and then they're not important.
Right.
And then it's then you have nobody ever talks about M counts again, with the exception of Dr. Pershing.
Right.
Says M counts. He doesn't say midichlorians or anything.
No, because that's a trigger word for Star Wars fans.
Yes. So he says M count when he's talking about Grogu. But what really does throw me is when you have a situation where it has to be kind of parallel to comic book writers switching when you have a director switching a movie. And you have Ryan Johnson to go to J.J. Abrams, and then he changes everything that Ryan Johnson did.
Yeah.
That has to happen within the X-Men comics.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And it's actually what I was thinking of is that when Disney bought Lucasfilm and they started, cranking out these Star Wars things, one of the things they said was that the novels that had come out beforehand, like those don't necessarily count unless we decide they do, kind of thing. And it makes me think back to when I was in high school. Another thing that King Mob got me into, along with some other D&D friends, was a series of books called Dragonlance that were very good. And I remember reading those, and then there were 3 books, the original trilogy, and then there was another trilogy focusing on a specific character that was really popular in the first trilogy. And then eventually the writers put out a 4th book. And between that time, a bunch of other writers had put out books for TSR, the people who own Dungeons and Dragons, a bunch of novels that filled in holes in the stories and stuff like that. And when the original authors came back and put out the 4th book, they said, treat those books as if they were stories you heard in a tavern. They might have happened, but they more than likely didn't.
Gotcha.
And that was kind of like, that was my first exposure to, what do you mean a thing I read didn't happen? That's BS. But as I've, once you've been through that once and taken that kind of offense to it, then it's easier when it happens in other mediums, when other writers come in and they be like, look, I don't like Rogue and Gambit together. I'm going to put Rogue with Deadpool. They're going to be romantic. And you go, what? Oh, okay, I guess this is what we're doing.
She can't really kill him.
That's true. Yeah, that's part of it. It's like, well, she can drain his life force, but he just keeps regenerating. So whatever. And you just have to kind of be like, well, nobody writes the book. Chris Claremont has the longest tenure on an X-Men book, and that was, I think, 16 years.
Wow.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody writes any comic book for longer than 3 to 5 years. I think the last person was Brian Michael Bendis, wrote Ultimate Spider-Man for a little over 10 years.
That's wild to me because it's like every time that you change an author, you're going to change the perception of how it works.
Yeah. To a degree. And I mean, I guess when comics, that's where the editor comes in.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got a Batman story they want to tell. It's up to the editor to figure out how to work it into what the company decides you can and cannot do with Batman, whether you can go down on Catwoman or not, that kind of thing.
That's like my headspace with it is like, it's weird because I feel like, Batman does have like backstories. It's not that like Batman doesn't have all these other villains and all these other things. But, like, the most popular Batman stuff ends up being, like, Joker, Two-Face, everything else. So you can kind of plop yourself into a Batman story, and it just makes sense, But, like, I don't know how much of that is, like, having the information in my brain. So when I think about just plopping into an X-Men story, that sounds so much more daunting for some reason.
Maybe it's because it's a team book, which is kind of what I like about it. I'm getting a bunch of characters at once. Everybody, it's a whole team of characters. So like I can have favorite characters, and I can have characters I'm not real favorites of, but a certain writer can write them in a way that I'm like, oh, I like that guy now.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I tend to gravitate towards team books instead of solo books. Like I've read Amazing Spider-Man, I've read Batman, and like it's okay, but I like it when I have multiple characters to deal with. I like the soap opera-ness of it.
Right.
Of the interactions between all of them.
Now, it's like some of the other comics that you really like that are not X-Men, like one of the ones is Matt Fraction's Hawkeye.
Sure.
That is a very like limited run in comparison to something like X-Men.
Yep.
Do you feel like you like X-Men as well because the story never ends?
There is a little bit of that. And it's also, there's so much history that, like you said, it can be daunting, but it also can be extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
There can be things where there can be character interactions that they don't even have to actively tell you, oh, the last time I talked to you, we were going to kill each other kind of thing.
Right.
But just seeing the two characters interact, if you've been reading for as long as you have, you remember that like, oh, these guys had knives out the last time they'd met, and now they're, like you can see in the distance between them where they're drawn kind of thing.
Yeah.
Without, them actively trying to thing. And it's also, there's additive continuity and there's subtractive continuity, and additive continuity is a positive thing. It's the thing that I learned when Jonathan Hickman took over the X-Men books, is that everything he was doing was additive. Everything was like, yes, this happened and now this is on top of it kind of thing, instead of being like, that didn't happen, instead of retconning stuff away.
I feel like I would like additive better.
Yeah.
Like, because changing something, because I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I had on Stranger Things. And I remember there being a discussion of were they going to retcon Will Byers' birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Because they messed up in season 4, and on the tape that they have 11 at the skating rink,
yes,
it's Will's birthday.
Yes.
And no one mentions it's Will's birthday, and that would not be something Joyce Byers would ever do to her favorite son. So, like, they were like, well, maybe we'll go and retcon that and change the audio. It's not like we can change the acting, but we can change the audio.
They can at least change the audio, so it's not...
Right, and I was watching that yesterday, and I was like, they didn't change that, right? And I'm like, okay, now I got to get to season 4 again and look. But, like, she said the 22nd this time. And I feel like if you just make a mistake like that, like... just go, oh shit, I made a mistake, and then find a way to, move forward from it in the story versus and I get that, like, the retconning in X-Men is not, we made a mistake. It's, I don't like that story, so I'm going to change it.
Right.
And I feel like when you do that, that's when you create it's like the Time Authority. It's like you're creating multiple realities, and it's driving me nuts.
Yep. Yeah. And like part of that can be very fun too. I think it's fun, but it's also more work to do additive continuity than it is to retcon something.
Well, that's the Marvel curse when it comes to the movies, is that if it doesn't line up, everyone's going to point it out.
Right. But then also, I mean, that's just good fiction, much less comic books, is leaving dangling plot holes that you can pick up later. And Chris Claremont was fantastic about every issue, had a couple of things that you'd be like, well, what about that? And then it wouldn't be addressed for years. And then he'd be like, oh yeah, that thing happened. Well, now it matters.
That's when wrestling is good, is when they remember.
That's when it's at its best.
Yeah, when they remember that something has to link up to something else. Like,
right.
Even just watching people lose their mind about the way Roman was recently pinned.
Yeah.
Going, well, that was the first time we saw him pinned in the Shield. It was by one of the Usos.
Yep.
And so, like, when they can pull a storyline like that and then connect it from years later, and it's like, that makes sense, then cool. But I don't like when there's so many, like, well, I just don't like that I'm going to change a dangling plot line that just doesn't go anywhere. And you're like, but what about that?
Well, and sometimes you get like somehow Emperor Palpatine returned,
which is stupid.
There's definitely been writers that have picked up dangling plot lines from years previous, and the story hadn't really worked out all that well. But
I hate that story so much. That might be my number one hated thing about Star Wars, is that
somehow Palpatine
returned. And it had to be Oscar Isaac delivering it.
Yeah.
He didn't even look like he wanted to say it,
no,
which is the funny part. He's just like,
somehow
Palpatine. Like, he's like, his head is down. He's like, this is the worst storyline ever.
It sucks.
So, with all of the things that you've ever collected, is X-Men your favorite?
It's hard to say.
Or is it?
It's definitely the thing I think I have the most of. Like, at least it's the thing I have the most comic books.
Transformers.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I definitely have more X-Men comic books than anything else. I mean, I've got some of the figures. That was the fun thing, is I started collecting X-Men, and a year later the animated series hit, and it was based on the series I started with. So it was kind of like a big. They did a real good job at that point, because that is when Chris Claremont left the books, and they did a really good job of making that era of the early '90s like a good jumping on point.
That song was a banger.
That X-Men
song? Oh my god, such a banger.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like I visually remember seeing it.
Yeah.
So it's not like I didn't have any access to it. I remember seeing it. I was just going, I don't like this animation style.
No, the animation is definitely. Even watching it, I was like, I'm happy that I have an X-Men cartoon, but I wish it looked better.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that happened when the movies came out, is that, like, I had a friend that was like, Wolverine's supposed to be like 4'5".
Yeah, he's
Hugh Jackman is 6'5". This is
supposed to be a little guy. He's supposed to be a short.
Supposed to have a Napoleon. Yeah, he's supposed to have a Napoleon complex. That's why he's like, so angry all the time. And I was like, dude, I have seen newsletters from the 70s when Chris Claremont had only been writing the books for 2 or 3 years of people saying, we're going to get a Dark Phoenix movie. We're going to get a Dark Phoenix movie. And there are people that did not live long enough to see X-Men on a movie screen.
Yep.
How it was the same guy who was very the same way with Thor. It was like, all this stuff is different. I'm like, dude, you got to see a live action dude played Thor and it wasn't dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is great.
I mean, honestly, I think one of the best ones in my brain of like reimagined characters that are so much better than the original, fucking Aquaman.
Yeah.
Not even Aquaman is not a great top tier Superman.
No, but Jason Momoa is Aquaman.
Jason Momoa is amazing, not just because he's hot. Don't be like that.
He's funny.
Don't be like that, podcasters. But he's funny. He's got a good charismatic behavior about him. He's a little bit more rugged.
Yeah.
The other one just looks silly.
His orange
His
green.
orange and green and lameness. And they were like, when they cast Jason Momoa, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God. They're going to change his costume, right? Oh God. And then he showed up and I'm like, no, this is fine. This is totally fine.
Right.
But that's one of those things where like you can have those characters be reimagined. I feel like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is like the best we're ever going to get. Like, I am hopeful for the future that there are some people that can live up to it.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see when we don't have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, as long as I live long enough to see it. Really interested to see who else do you get.
I feel like I have, like, castings in my brain that I would be okay with, even though, like, one of them I've never even seen this guy act in anything. So that's what's funny about it. The guy that was in Sons of Anarchy, the Charlie Hudson guy, I feel like he could play a comparable Wolverine that would be acceptable.
I remember when they did the First Class movies, there was talk of like, if we're going to stick Wolverine in these movies, he's got to be, you know, a new actor. He's got to be younger. And somebody was like, well, who would you get? And one of the rumors was the guy who played, I think it was the guy who played Frodo.
Yeah, why?
Lord of the Rings.
Why?
I don't know.
I mean, probably because he's small.
I think he'd already put out that movie where he has the gun stapled to his hands.
No,
like,
so
that's kind of good.
That's the wrong actor.
Oh, is it?
Because
Okay.
My second pick was Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe, yeah.
Because he is a short king.
Right.
And because of like things like Guns Akimbo, like he can handle it. Absolutely, he can do the stunts. He can do whatever.
He can do the weird stuff.
He can do the weird stuff, you know. And he's got that weirdo capability. I mean, when Weird Al looks at you and goes, he gets it. I want him.
Right.
That is, you know, any cosign that you'd ever need. But like those two are kind of in my brain. Also, that guy, that Andrew Taylor Johnson guy, would have probably also been a good one had he not been doing the whatever that thing is that's going to be worse than Morbius.
Oh, Craven.
Yeah. But like those are kind of the ones in my brain. But like after seeing Logan, it's like I don't know how you top that. Logan is not. It feels like it's a superhero movie, but it's not a superhero movie. There's so much drama that goes with it.
Sure.
And there's so much artistic.
Well, that's the thing is that you can't, when you stick Wolverine in whatever the new X-Men movies are, or when you make a new Wolverine movie, you can't look at the ones that have come before and try and like top them. Like because even like Wolverine has had so many comic books, and there's Wolverine in a sci-fi setting. There's Wolverine in a time travel setting. There's Wolverine like you have to pick a different genre and stick Wolverine in it and see how it works.
Well, and I think that's the back door that they're gonna go with, and it's weird because it's like I know that everything is about like alternate timelines and alternate realities right now, but I feel like it's gonna get overboard at some point.
Yeah,
it already kind of has, where it's just like, oh well, if we're just gonna recast the actor or something, we're just gonna have an alternate timeline guy. And it's lazy story writing. To me.
Yeah, the alternate timeline thing is the new zombies. Like
yes, exactly. Everything is that.
Is alternate realities.
But when I look at it from the like other sides of the coin too, it's like, okay, so if you're not going to recast Wolverine and to your point of like, oh yeah, there's all these other stories and stuff like that, there's going to be the same argument for an Iron Man eventually.
100%.
Just go Riri Williams and run with that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why they created Riri Williams when they did, because they knew like, well, Robert Downey Jr. is not going to be Iron Man forever, and we're going to have to recast him someday, so we might as well get out in front of this with the comics and make whatever his
His protege,
his next
essentially.
protege is going to be.
Right, exactly. And that's going to be the hard part as these movies go, because like we have Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner passing torch to Haley Steinfeld.
Right.
So we have Kate now. We've got Black Widow passing torch to Yelena.
Right.
So there are moves that are being made where they're making these connections to other things, and I'm talking more obviously mostly movies here, but at the same time it's like I look at something like Wolverine, and when you have something that's such a perfect casting,
Right.
it's really hard to recast that. And it's like when they recast, and it's not necessarily a recast, but younger versus older of Magneto and Professor X.
Sure.
Those guys, Michael Fassbender and what is that other guy's name? I forget.
Oh, I don't remember.
James
McAvoy.
Yeah, James McAvoy. I'm like, I know it's a J.
Yeah.
Both of those guys were phenomenal.
Very good. Though James McAvoy does not look good with a bald head.
No, he does not.
when they decided to give him the bald head, it was like, ooh, all right.
The thing is that young guys don't look good bald.
They can. It takes.
I mean, if you have like a buzz,
right,
and it's fine. But like sometimes if you're like completely shellacked up here,
right,
it feels unreal, and that's what
I'm going to tell Greg. You said that.
Greg has been abused by me his entire life. He'll live. My friend Greg that I grew up with is completely bald right now, but like he embraced it, and I love him. So it's different,
right?
But like when you look at somebody like James McAvoy, who has like the best head of hair, and
right,
then you put a bald cap on this guy, and you're like.
So here's a concept that like I always would have liked them to employ in an X-Men book, but they never have, or in any superhero book, because you see it in different superhero genres. Like you're talking about how we've now got a new Hawkeye.
Yep.
And like there's been multiple Black Widows, there's been multiple Captain Americas kind of thing. I like the idea of thinking of a superhero of thinking of a superhero persona as like a job title.
Yeah.
Instead of as like, James Howlett is Wolverine, because like now we have for a couple of years there, Wolverine was off the table, and they brought in the X-23 character, the young girl, and she took up the name of Wolverine,
and I like that.
And then he came back and he was just like, no, you're Wolverine. We're both Wolverine. Everyone can be Wolverine. Fuck it.
Well, and I think that's
it's the same thing with Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, yeah, I was gonna say with Hawkeye, and if what's his face ever came back, I'm sure Sam would just be like, take this shield, I don't want it,
right,
take it back.
But I think going forward, especially when it comes to the movies and the recasting and stuff, I think as fans we're going to have to look at it more like of being Captain America is a job title. It's not Steve Rogers is always Captain America, because eventually you're going to get like your third, fourth, fifth recasting of these guys. Being Spider-Man is not always Peter Parker. Sometimes it's Miles Morales. Sometimes it's Gwen Stacy. Kind of thing. And I like
they've built that out properly.
Yeah.
Like there are build outs for that already. And like if they went with the side of it where they said like, okay, X-23 isn't how, I'm totally acceptable of that.
Yeah.
But like trying to recast Wolverine and telling me that's the same Wolverine.
Telling me that's
that I have with it. So it's a little bit disconnected for me. Especially since they didn't do it in First Class or any of that.
Yeah, they just got him. They're
just like, Hugh, come back. We want you again.
You're
doing Deadpool 3? Hugh, come back. We want you again.
We just need you for 5 minutes so you could tell Charles and Magneto to fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I say like, and sometimes it works. Like I feel like both versions of Beast are great.
Yeah.
I love both versions of those guys.
I think Kelsey Grammer was dream casting for Beast, but also I understand that like he's going to have a stunt guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to be hanging upside down or anything like that. You're not going to do that to Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
But then the guy they got for Young Beast is freaking amazing.
Isn't that the guy that played Renfield?
Yes.
Yes, I thought so. I don't remember.
I don't remember the actor's name, unfortunately. But
like both of those, and I kind of got a little carried away with talking about the movie side of it, but it's like for entry points that are easier, it makes sense to me to start with movies and then go to comics, but I feel like almost with the X-Men you should do the opposite. Do you agree?
I think it means more to you if you do it in the opposite way.
Okay.
I think it's possible to do the movies into comics, but you have to, like I was saying about turning the superhero persona into a job title, you have to change your mentality. Like there's no way. You love the Spider-Man movies. There's no way you're going to start with Spider-Man #1 from the 60s
right.
and like feel that satisfaction.
Right.
Like, yeah, there are 60, 70 years of Spider-Man to read, and that's why as much as we hate it as comic book readers, that's why every couple of years they reboot the series with a new number one
Yep.
and a new creative team, and like they don't start at Peter just got bit by the spider and now he's Spider-Man. Like it keeps in continuity, but it gives people who just watched a movie and want a starting point, much like I did with X-Men. It gives you here's a number one, so this is the start of a new story. Yes, things have happened beforehand, and unless you want to go back and read all that, you're just going to have to take it at face value when Mysterio shows up and we say, man, last time I fought Mysterio, he had tigers. And you're like, if you say so.
And you're just accept.
It was, think about this. Infinity Gauntlet number one was one of my first comics. And like, one of my first exposures to comic books is Thanos wiping out half the universe.
Right.
Is looking at a screen of superheroes and not even knowing half of them and being like, yeah, they're dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Being like, I mean, this seems like a big deal, but okay, whatever. Yeah. And then, retroactively being like, oh no, that shit doesn't just happen every day. Now it happens every year.
Yeah.
Now they do a crossover every year and shit like that happens. But like, that's wild.
Yeah, that's wild. So I'm going to bring us back to center here to tidy up at the end. Out of all of the X-Men comics that you've like read, all of the different runs, all of the different series on writers, what are your top 3 like runs?
Chris Claremont is number one. Like I said, it's a 16-year run. It is more it's more rewarding every time you read it. You see something new.
Yep.
Which is absolutely fantastic. And the podcast that I listen to, Cerebro and Jane Miles Explain the X-Men, I don't think they would exist if that wasn't true. If it wasn't a matter of like everyone can read that and pick something out and discuss it and be like, oh, I didn't get that out of it, but that makes total sense.
Right.
And that's a lot of fun. I think Jonathan Hickman's most current run, it started with House of X and Powers of 10, is great because not only does it take 50, 60 years of X-Men continuity and turn it all on its ear, it also adds to it. And it takes things that have been tropes that we've just accepted, like the fact that everybody dies and then they come right back because it's comic books kind of thing, and like turns it into a plot point.
Yeah.
Turns it into, there's a reason X-Men don't die forever now, because they have this mutant circuit that can just resurrect people.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And that's fun. As far as the third one, that's tough. I know Brian Michael Bendis did a run on X-Men, and I liked it, but it definitely wasn't one of the high points of X-Men.
Did you ever read any of the Old Man Logan stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Old Man Logan, the original Old Man Logan series is written by Mark Millar, who did Wanted and Kick-Ass and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
It is a phenomenal year of storytelling. And then they brought him back about 10 years ago. When Wolverine was off the table, it was like, well, we can't have regular Wolverine. What if we take Old Man Logan and pluck him out of his universe and stick him in the main Marvel universe for a while? Old Man Logan was really good.
Would you say that's like maybe 3?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because I know it's been listed on multiple lists as the best superhero movie of all time.
That's the wild thing. That's why the Chris Claremont run is number one, because it encompasses the Phoenix and Dark's Phoenix saga. It's the first couple of major crossovers in Marvel units, like Fall of the Mutants, Inferno, Extinction Agenda. They became, when those established, hey, every summer we're going to do giant crossovers where half the line is going to have to deal with something that's going on, like Civil War, kind of thing. And that was, there's so many firsts that come from the 80s Chris Claremont run of X-Men, and a big part of that is because he had the book on top, and the editors-in-chief was like, I don't understand what he's doing, but we're making tons of bank, so just
Let him do what he's doing.
Keep him on the tracks. Just tell his editor, keep him on the tracks. Just make sure he doesn't do anything too crazy.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
I dig that. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up and head to our serotonin boosts?
Yes. So we usually do a little segment called What Have We Learned?
Yeah, I was going to do that after this.
Okay, because I got a game for you.
Yeah.
For What Have We Learned?
Okay. So we'll do that next.
All right.
Yeah. welcome back to the Really Big Fan Pod. Why are you laughing? You were pausing, and I was like, I guess it's my show. I'm driving.
It's like you keep reaching over and grabbing the wheel. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
all right,
You just paused, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm driving again.
here we go.
So welcome back to the Really Big Fan Pod.
Right.
We're going to play a game.
We are. Unfortunately, I lost my page here. Give me a second.
Did you already write it out?
Wait. So no, I had a page up for reference. That's you're gonna have to give me a minute here. Damn it. So you had tweeted, or at least I had sent you the tweet from a company that makes little plushies.
Yes, that was what was posted to our socials today.
Yes, that are X-Men. And I was gonna go on their site and I was going to say what they call the character and see if you could tell me what character that's supposed to be.
Oh, but I looked at them this morning.
Wait, well, some of them some of them you will know, obviously, but some of them, because they don't just do X-Men, they do a lot of stuff.
Oh, goodness.
We'll start with the X-Men. Okay.
Okay.
I think you're going to do really well on this. Honestly.
All right.
So their X-Men are known as prejudicedly judged heroes.
Poor guys.
Right. So this one's a softball. I'll lob you this one. Mr. Angry Four Cans.
Oh yeah, that's Wolverine.
That's absolutely Wolverine. How about Cajun Card Fighter?
That is Gambit.
Yep, nicely done.
Yep.
Excellent. Miss Runs Through Walls.
That is Kitty Pryde.
It is Kitty Pryde. Well, see, all right, so you nailed it.
I'm absorbing what you say all the time. It's
Right.
just I don't read or listen.
How about the Protectors of the Known Universe? Let's see if you know some of these guys without me saying what their actual title is.
Okay.
Dancing Space Vigilante.
Star-Lord.
Yes, very well done. This one's also a softball now that you know what realm we're in. Your Real Daddy.
Oh, Yondu.
Yes, absolutely.
He's your father, boy, but he ain't your daddy.
Let me switch over to the Reclaimers of Justice. Perfect Shot Birdman.
That's not Sam Wilson, right?
It is not.
Okay.
You want to take another shot?
You said Birdman, and my brain just went to Rick and Morty. I like my brain is not.
That's
oh yeah, Hawkeye.
That's Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Exactly. There you go.
Perfect Shot Birdman. I'm just like seeing Birdman from
Right.
Rick and Morty in my brain, going, "That's not it. That's not it. Get out."
How about Pretty Fly for a Bird Guy?
That one would have to be Sam.
That
right?
one's
Yeah,
Sam Wilson. There you go. Admiral Awesome.
Captain America.
Nope.
Admiral Awesome. No.
Captain Marvel.
Oh, gotcha.
That's all right. Perception Robot.
That would be Vision, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Daddy's First Corrupted Hard Drive.
Ultron.
Yes.
That is a great name for Ultron.
Is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, no, they got some great names for these. If you
That
guys
might be the next name of my next hard drive.
if you guys want to check this out, you definitely want to check out niteowlworks.com.
Yep, I
do a
put it
bunch
on
of-
our socials, so you should be able to find it.
Yes, a bunch of really cute plushies. And they didn't have to pay us for that ad.
No, not at all. Not at all. They were just they paid us with humor,
Yes.
and we got to laugh at them because I think my favorite out of all of those was social distancing.
Social distancing heroine.
It's
So
like, oh,
good.
poor Rogue.
So good. All right, so it's serotonin boost time.
Yes.
What do you got? You didn't want to go first, did you?
I totally forgot what mine was.
Oh, no.
I had it. What was it? I know I tweeted about it because
Yeah.
I said it was going to be my serotonin boost if I didn't come up with something else. So you
Right.
go while I find this.
Well, I didn't have mine either.
We are so prepared.
It goes back to our prep work.
We are
Conversation.
so prepared. I love it.
You know, I'm going to say my serotonin boost this week is Super Metroid. So I stream Super Metroid on our channel, the Really Big Fan Pod. My first time playing through the whole game and beating it, and it took 4.5 hours. And one of the things about the Metroid games is that the quicker you beat them, the better the ending
Outcome is?
Yeah, the better the ending becomes. So if you can beat it in under 3 hours, you can get the best ending. And it made me, after I beat it in 4.5 hours, I started doing some reading and looking at stuff. And I'm like, I think I can hit that 3 hour mark. So I've done a little bit of it on stream, but I've done most of it off stream. So you guys don't have to watch me rewind a segment, 50 times just to get the perfect jump. But I'm on a good track for it. I think I'm about an hour and 10 minutes in, and I'm already done basically half the game. And I think I'm gonna hit that 3 hours. I'll definitely, when I get near the end of the game, I'll definitely stream it so we can enjoy together whether or not I hit my 3 hour mark. But the first time through Super Metroid, I was like, there are parts of this game I do not enjoy.
Yeah.
But it birthed an entire genre of games known as the Metroidvania, because the Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation 1 was essentially a Metroid game. And that is why they're called Metroidvanias, because those are the two high points of that genre of game.
Gosh.
And I can see why. I can, the music is solid, the animation is good. It was definitely, if you had a Super Nintendo and you didn't have Super Metroid, you definitely were missing something out of your library. So yeah, Super Metroid's pretty great.
I gotcha. So I kind of have a tie.
Okay.
So there's going to be two quick ones.
All right.
First one was Juvenile did his Tiny Desk concert, and I was in here stoned dancing. I
Aw.
was listening to him do slow motion, and it made me so happy.
That's cute.
He did slow motion, and he did Back That Ass Up, and other songs, of course. Because
But they're doing it on little kid instruments?
no, it's not the kid instrument thing. So what they do is it's almost like if you had an acoustic set.
Okay.
But it's in the NPR office.
Yeah.
So they're at a cubicle. So they're there's
Fun.
strings people, there's horn people.
And they just have to cram
They have to
them all
cram
in there.
everybody into this cubicle area,
Right.
but the people from NPR came up to watch, the staff.
Yes.
And so at one point during Back That Ass Up, Manny Fresh gets in the crowd with people when he's supposed to do his verse, because he's usually just the producer.
Yeah.
Because he's just sitting there with that little beat table that you have. He's got one of those in front of him.
Yes.
And he's hitting different beats throughout the performance because he's Juvenile's producer for the most part. But he hops in the crowd when he's got to do his part, and he turns the microphone around and then runs into the crowd, and the cameraman's trying to get in on it.
Right.
And so he's just in the crowd with a bunch of people from NPR going, I know you can't stand it, Dick Bandit, stand it. And he's doing it, and everybody's doing it with him, and it's so cute because he just looks like, at the age that Manny Fresh is now, it's probably very heartwarming to him that anybody remembers him or remembers his verses or anything. Even though Big Timers was pretty big, Birdman was the breakout of the two of those guys because he ended up being the head of Cash Money. So, and that's the people that put out Lil Wayne.
Okay.
And then didn't let Lil Wayne release his album for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Stuff like that. So that was number one because I was just I love 2000s hip hop no matter what. The other one that's very, very quick is we watched The Predator finally because
We did.
some things that are going on within my life and found out that I'd never watched The Predator. Carl Weathers without his shirt on.
Whew.
I don't know if that's even considered a serotonin boost or if I'm just bonk, go to horny jail.
Yeah.
But women must have been throwing themselves at Carl Weathers in the 80s and 90s. I didn't even know what Action Jackson was until I was going through trying to find another picture because I tweeted about Carl Weathers being shirtless and going, holy hell. And then Erica texts me and she goes, and you didn't post a photo? And I'm like, fine, I'll find a picture. And I can't find the picture where he's fully shirtless.
Yeah, where they're pulling that
Where they're
tree
pulling
down.
the rope, can't find it. But I can find the one where he's got the vest open.
Yes.
And you just see his abs, and I'm just like, Grief Karga. Grief Karga. Whoo!
Do we need to watch the first Rocky now?
Apparently, because I've never seen
the
any of
original
Rocky.
Apollo Creed.
Yeah, that's what Erica said too, and I didn't have the heart to tell her I've never seen Rocky.
Right.
But any of the Rockies I've never seen, so I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so now I just need to have a Carl Weathers-a-thon.
I guess we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need it because he's so not only is he still charming.
Yes, absolutely.
In the 80s, but now he's young and chiseled
Yep.
and
But he's just a charming person, and then the fact that he can direct Star Wars episodes on top of being charming,
Right.
and then being Grogu's grandpa.
Do you remember that photo of J.K. Simmons in the gym, and he was chiseled?
Yes.
Old man chiseled?
Yes.
Do you think underneath those robes, that's what Carl Weathers looks like now? He's just old man chiseled?
They would have to have put a fat belly on him if they did, because I was he doesn't look like that now. Not to say that Carl Weathers is fat, but he's definitely got Like,
Yeah.
it's like old man belly.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
So, like, he would have to be wearing, like, a prosthetic stomach in order for that to be a thing. So I don't think it's a thing.
No?
Considering, like, his facial structure is now a little bit rounder and stuff. He's not very
No, you're probably right.
face.
He probably hasn't. He probably stopped working out when he didn't have to anymore.
Yeah. Grief Karga's still pretty to me, though. It's fine.
Yeah,
He's got that silver fox beard going on.
He
So
does. I'm
But
glad
yes.
I'm glad you enjoy that, because boy, do I have that all that gray.
I got my silver fox at home.
You do. Oh, wait a minute. I'm the silver fox at home.
No, not like that. I mean,
Mom, can we get Carl Weathers? We have silver fox at home.
Timothy Oliphant is silver fox in the silver screen, or Chris Pine, because I don't understand how he still looks that good.
He does.
But,
He's
yeah.
really.
Yeah, those are all the guys
Fantastic.
that have your hair.
Yes.
What's his name? The guy that was in Mandalorian.
Yeah, I don't remember his actor's name either. I
No,
just remember
his name is Timothy
Timothy.
Oliphant. But
Yeah.
I forget what his. It wasn't Cad Bane. It's.
No, Cad Bane is the evil one, the other guy.
But there's anyway, you
whatever.
guys know what I'm talking about. You're nerds. So thank you for listening to my brain vomit today. I highly appreciate you. And if you want to support this brain vomit, go to our Patreon page, because we would very much like to keep doing this. And now we have ads. So if you want an ad-free experience, please go subscribe to our Patreon and you will get the episode as soon as Chuck is done with it, which I promise will be done quicker. Last week was completely on me.
Last week was a little. We were getting ready for the holidays and stuff. So
Yeah.
it was a shit show.
That definitely wasn't the reason. I'm just an idiot and things in folders. So I will be more on top of things and try to manage my ADHD. And I hope that Cobb Vanth. There we go.
There you go. Thanks, Hall Gaming. Come back.
So thank you very much to everybody that has listened and watched today. And thanks so much to everybody that is listening on wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you again next week.
Check us out on Thursdays on YouTube. On Fridays is a podcast. You can check us out on Wednesdays, recording the podcast around 11:30 at twitch.tv/reallyBigFanPod. That's all where you can watch us stream games like Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time and
Yes.
Super Metroid, like I talked about earlier, and all the. When I'm playing Fortnite, sometimes you can see me do really well on the Switch and really bad everywhere else.
And if you want to see anything stupid on social media, feel free to go to Really Big Fan Pod on any of those.
Yep.
And
That's it.
we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.